This video is a playthrough of the Shadow of Mordor Endless Challenge, in which I was able to get about 40,000 points. Now we'll start off, and I'm going to show you the runes that I'm using. On the sword, I've got sword damage, combat finishers, doing extra damage against captains, recharging the Storm of Urfael, double the rate, the duration by 10 seconds, and hit streaks are 10 seconds longer. On the bow, I have double the focus. I recover focus on Shadow Strike. Recharge is at double the rate, and bow damage is increased by 50%. And then probably the most important is that it recovers an elf shot on Shadow Strike kills, so the effect is it only takes one elf shot rather than two to do a Shadow Strike kill. On the knife, I've got a total of +8 elf shot each time I do a brand, and I also recover all my health. So the first thing that I do is just get one intelligence on one war chief, because I just want to immediately brand a war chief to use to fight everything else. So I'm just clearing out the orcs that are near this guy so that I can dominate him and get the intel. And I don't really care what the details are on that guy. I'm just going to brand him no matter what. I'm also opportunistically looking for orcs to Shadow Strike kill, since that's what earns the most points. The challenging part of this mission is to get, well, initially 25,000 points, but then just as many points as you can. Here I check the stats, they're pretty normal, so this is fine. So then I want to go to where the mission start point is, but before that, since I just started the challenge, my sword and bow are not yet charged up. So one of the things you'll see me do quite a few times is come to this particular stronghold and just kill a bunch of orcs in order to both build up my score and charge up the bow and the sword. The bow is charged every time I do one of these Shadow Strike kills, which is where you see the X prompt on screen, and then my character sort of disappears and reappears and then kills guy. The sword is charged by doing execution kills. So here I'm waiting for the reinforcements that one guy called in, and then once they arrive, this part gets fairly repetitive, but basically it's just a process of chaining together these Shadow Strikes. Now Shadow Strike is the Shadow Strike chain is kind of finicky. You can see the X prompt on the screen, but it doesn't always work. And the technique that I've come up with for trying to make it as reliable as possible is to sort of keep my intended target off screen until just before I press X. So I sort of move the camera away and then sweep it toward my intended target just before I press the button. And when I do that, it usually chains successfully, although it's still not perfect. Now here, there's a captain in amongst these orcs. He's the guy with the orange crescent over his head. I'm ignoring him for now while I just keep charging up, well, first getting points and then clearing out these orcs. And at the moment I'm charging my bow. This is also charging up my hit streak so that I can then do an execution. So there's one execution and then I'll do one more. Now unfortunately these captains, they always have a line of dialogue if you let them say it, and in this game they charge you for the time that it takes to speak the dialogue, which is really stupid. So I try to avoid that when I can, but it's not always avoidable. Blowing up that barrel charged my hit streak because it killed a bunch of orcs, and that was what let me then get the kill in on this guy. So it looks like all the orcs have run away, and therefore I'm just going to fast travel to a nearby outpost, or whatever these are called, these tower things, and then start the sequence again, because in all that battle I did not successfully charge my sword. The sword charge is indicated in the lower left. You can see kind of next to the mini-map there's now a blue crescent that's slowly increasing. Once that gets to full, then the sword will be fully charged. So in the meantime, I just continue doing shadow strikes, again, trying to score points. And you can see on the right, on the upper right, it shows for each kill what score you get. And it's 10 points for some normal orcs, and it goes up to about 30 points for those with shields or spears or axes. But more important than the score for the orcs themselves is that you get 40 points, an additional 40 points, for killing them with Shadow Strike, which is pretty overpowered, since Shadow Strike kill is arguably the easiest way to kill an orc. But whatever, that's sort of the way the game is built. And unfortunately that makes this run kind of repetitive, because as far as I know, this is the most time-efficient way to get points, is just to do Shadow Strike chaining over and over. Now the way these... here I screwed up. I wasn't paying attention, and I ran out of elf shots, and so now I have to do like the actual normal combat of this game to build up my hit streak enough so that I can drain an orc and get the elf shot from him. And that'll do it. That also restores my health, and I can resume Shadow Strike kills. So the way these outposts work is, when you first show up, there's just some orcs standing around. When they notice you, one of them will usually run to set off the alarm. Once the alarm is set off, then a bunch more will show up. So one wave of orcs shows up, and I'm just coming to the end of that wave. If you stand around for about 20 seconds, a second wave will show up and you can kill them as well. And then after that, a third wave will appear, but the third wave only gives you 1 point for each kill. So since the goal is to score points as fast as possible, obviously you don't want to stick around for that third wave. Here, just because it was easy, I grabbed intel on the next war chief. And I may end up needing that, I think, a little bit later. So here I think I decide to just reset it. No, here I decided to wait. It takes about the same amount of time to reset it by going back to the tower as to wait for the second wave. So I think mostly in this run I did a reset each time, but here I just go ahead and kill the second wave. Now one thing you might notice towards the end of this wave is that when the wave is almost over, about half of the orcs run away, and the remainder stand and fight. Since the orcs are not all worth the same amount of points, in particular these guys with shields and axes and spears are worth 30 points each, I'm trying to Shadow Strike to kill the ones that are worth more, as opposed to the normal orcs, because, like I say, at some point half of them are going to run away, and so ideally I would have killed all the high-value orcs by the time that happens. That's somewhat tricky because of this camera movement thing I'm doing, where I intentionally only look at my target just before I press the button to try to make sure that the Shadow Strike goes off correctly. But to the extent there's any strategy at all to this, it's to try to pick out of this mess the guys with shields, axes, or spears. And there what happened was the Shadow Strike didn't chain properly, and so when it fails to chain I have to initiate it again, which takes time. So I think this is close to the end of this wave. Yeah, I think I see... No, I think the group that runs away already, yeah, they already ran away. And I always, after I brand someone to get more elf shot, then they fight on my side, but I don't want their help. They're just going to kill orcs that I would have been able to kill for more points, so I always kill the one that I branded first. Alright, so that wave is done. Now I've charged up my sword, so I'm going to fast travel and then head toward the mission where I can try to brand the war chief that I selected. And I'm trying to just catch a glimpse of an enemy over there so I can avoid having to run all the way toward this thing. One thing is when you're moving across ground like this, you want to try to get those little prompts to go faster. So the first war chief has a little mission that you have to do, and the mission that you get is random. For some reason I couldn't target this guy at first. This one, fortunately, is not too time consuming. And so specifically what they want you to do here is kill certain of these guys. They're yellow on the mini-map, and they have yellow dots above them in the main view with an execution move, which can be done either by charging up the sword, which is charged now, and so then I can run towards them and press F to execute, or I can do a shadow strike without the kill that knocks them down, and then when they're on the ground you can kill them like that, and so that also counts. This guy's not yellow, so I'm just going to charge off of him and then kill him. And then try to move into the main fortress. And although this takes a little bit of time, it's not really a problem because I'm still getting points. And since I'm going to have to farm a lot of points over the course of this run, it's not a big deal. It's bad if I have to just wait around not killing, but here I'm earning points, so it doesn't matter. Alright, so now I've killed 5 of those guys with executions. Here comes the war chief, and he's got 3 bodyguards, which is helpful because now I've got, I have to kill a total of 25 of these bosses, and 4 of them show up together here when a war chief has this many bodyguards, so it's an efficient way to get them. Now what I want to do initially is try to use my bow. Only about 1/3 of the enemies are vulnerable to ranged attack, so I'm just essentially testing each one by shooting them to find out who's vulnerable. And so this guy is vulnerable, and so my goal is to just take him all the way out. I think I activated the bow there to make sure that I didn't run out of focus. Yeah, the bow is active. And this guy is not quite going to die, so... Alright, so the bow is no longer active, but I still have regular focus. So I'm just killing him with the focus that I have that doesn't come from the charged up bow. And this guy I think is invulnerable, so I'm just going to switch to my sword. And he gets to speak his line of dialogue. I could have prevented that from happening by activating my sword, and I should have, but I failed to. And somehow this ordinary orc had almost killed the guy who I needed to, which is actually bad because I wanted to brand this guy, but for whatever reason, it wouldn't let me grab him, and hitting him killed him. So now it turns out to be valuable to have grabbed the intel on the second war chief because it means that I can activate the mission with him. So since I used my bow, I need to charge it up again, so I'm going to do another sequence of killing these guys. One thing about the Shadow Strike chains that also adds a little bit of difficulty is that the animation that the guy does to do the kill is not always the same, and the proper time to press X varies based on that animation. So there's one animation, the one that this one where he sort of twirls around and decapitates the guy. That's the most common, and so you get kind of lured into a certain cadence with that animation. But then every now and then he'll do this stabbing. No, that's not one. I don't know where it'll happen, but there's a stabbing animation that has a different timing to it. Okay, so we've killed those enemies. That charged my bow. Now I'm going to go to the mission to try to dominate the war chief again and hopefully not kill him. And I'm looking for somebody who I can Shadow Strike to. Oh, those will do. Right after you fast travel, the enemies don't spawn instantly, so sometimes you have to first get down any way you can, and then hope that they spawn in favorable locations to move forward. I was looking up on that cliff because I saw there was some intel up there and considering going to get it, but then decided against it. But because I was looking up there, I didn't see the thing I could have used to jump over and gain some speed. Alright, so this is a different mission for a war chief. Here what I have to do is brutalize a particular enemy. Brutalize is essentially just a variation on a stealth kill where you right-click instead of left-click. And he stabs him several times instead of once, and apparently the orcs care about that sort of thing. Again, there's no particular reason to hurry up here as long as I'm getting points as fast as I would be by farming them, so I just go ahead and charge up stuff, and then here's my right click that apparently somebody cares about. And then this is unfortunate. This particular variation of mission forces me to just spend 15 seconds hiding in the bushes. There's not much I can do about that. I was just checking there to make sure that my bow was fully charged. So once again, we got a war chief to kill along with 3 captains who are his bodyguards. And you always want to kill the bodyguards first, because if you kill the war chief first, then there's an animation that plays and one of the bodyguards becomes a war chief, the other bodyguards run away. It's really annoying and time consuming. So it looks like everyone here is invulnerable to ranged, which is unlucky. So I've activated my sword so that I can get an unlimited number of executions. And while your sword or your bow is active, it also prevents these guys from saying dialogue lines. So the more of them you can kill while one of those is active, the faster the whole sequence is going to be. Now, unfortunately, the guy with the green skull, he insists on saying a line of dialogue before you kill him. So he's kneeling on the ground. I can't kill him at the moment, so I'm trying to just do damage to these other guys in the meantime. Then he gets back up because he recovered some health. So now 2 idiots are kneeling. So alright, so now my sword is done and this guy can say his dialogue. There's a simple quick time event you need to do to finish him off. And then I'm going to try to run over to the other guy who's kneeling before he gets up due to regeneration. And I make it over there. You have to be standing next to him for him to say his dialogue. Another quick time event. And now finally I can work on the war chief, and he of course will get the chance to say his opening dialogue. I think it's completely ridiculous that this game has these... There's only about 30 different lines of dialogue. I've heard them all at this point. You cannot skip them, and they charge you the time that it takes for them to say the dialogue. And but because I can... Alright, he wants to say a dialogue before he dies too. which is actually good because I wanted the opportunity to brand him. So now I've branded him, I can give him a command, and now this is really the key to this run, is that you command the war chief, one war chief, to attack another. That means that the war chief that you're going to attack will appear at a specific point. You don't have to do the normal mission that you would to be able to fight him, and he'll bring along all his bodyguards. So that's a favorable location for it because it's right by this tower. So I'm going to go back to the tower. I used my sword, but not my bow, so I need to charge up the sword. So I'll do yet another single wave of these guys, and then I'll do that next mission. Yeah, that's the one with the different timing, where he finishes with a stab instead of finishing with a slice. Okay, so the sword is completely charged. The bow is as well. That guy's being annoying. So now let's go do this riot mission. So the riot mission is just my branded war chief versus some other war chief plus his bodyguards. And it's seems to be the most efficient way to get these. I was trying to figure out where the spawn marker was. I couldn't see it. It turns out it's in this tower. The mission start marker, I mean. And all you have to do is just kill them. Like there's really nothing to it here. Of course, they have dialogue. So once again, the goal is going to be to get where I can see them, to kill as many as I can with my bow first, and then switch to my sword. So that guy's vulnerable, so I'll focus him down. I'm also going to shoot that barrel, which makes the screen shake and makes it hard to see where the guy's head is. And he doesn't, yeah, he only wants to, so I had because he needs to say his dialogue, I approach him while still holding the bow to prevent anybody else from saying their dialogue. And now I should immediately go back into holding the bow to once again prevent dialogue. Then, okay, so here I'm just going to start doing some more shadow strikes to, I guess, charge up my hit streak. I really should have just activated my sword. There, now the sword is active. I have to be a little bit careful because my own guy is right in my way. There's now just the war chief, and again, my sword being active means he can't say his dialogue. I'm hoping to finish him before that wears off, and of course my own guy gets in the way, wastes a bunch of time. And, okay, so now that guy wants to take a kneel, meanwhile I hit my own guy, and so I just have to wait for them, and now he can say his death dialogue. And that's another war chief and 3 captains down. And so then what I need to do, once this guy dies, I have to wait for a moment for the game to acknowledge that the mission is over. And then I want to immediately grab my war chief and dominate him again to give him his next command. If you let him wander off, then getting a hold of him again takes a lot more time. So while he's here, grab him, give him a command, tell him to fight the next war chief, and immediately mark that and go. And since I used my sword, then I'll go back to the tower and do yet another wave of killing orcs. And there, the sword is charged. So, now we're ready to do the next riot. And I guess I decided to just try to, rather than fast travel to that tower, just run there in hopes that someone would be spawned. I thought that was somebody's head, but it's just a bat or a bird or something. So I couldn't Shadow Strike to it, but now those guys did spawn, so I can get over here quicker. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's an archer in that tower, so I have to actually climb it to get in it. And now this riot works exactly the same as the previous, and it's in exactly the same location. So once again, I'll run out, try to use my bow as much as I can, then switch to the sword to finish him off. So not vulnerable, not vulnerable. Bad guy is. Go ahead and hit the barrel just to do a bit of damage to everybody. And here for safety, I activate the bow so I don't run out of focus. I really don't want to run out of focus and let these guys say their dialogue. And everyone else is invulnerable to ranged, so I go ahead and use the charged up hit streak and then activate the sword. So now there's 2 enemies left. And this guy above his crescent, there's like kind of a red glow. That means he's angry about something, so he's slightly stronger. Probably he was angry about that explosion, but not that big a deal, especially with the sword active. And there, I executed some bystander. The targeting in this game is not very precise, this sort of thing. Okay, so now it's just the war chief who will get a chance to say his dialogue. Oops, I missed him. Oh, maybe he won't. Yeah, you only get to say his death dialogue. That was lucky.
Would you bring your woman back?
Alright, so here I want to grab this guy. Once again, grab my war chief to give him a new command. But he's standing right next to one of the runes that was dropped by one of these enemies. And unfortunately, my guy grabs the rune instead, wasting 3 or 4 seconds. The runes I just leave lying around the map, and then I clean them up outside this mission. They're all trash at this point. Alright, so I've given him the command to attack the next war chief. Meanwhile, I'm going to go back to the stronghold and once again do a wave of orcs, charging up my bow and my sword. So that was an execution, and that finished charging my sword. So now I just have to finish killing these guys. Then these idiot Caragors show up. I have no idea what triggered them to appear. I certainly didn't do any of the standard things that caused them to appear, so I don't want them killing orcs, since that takes away my points. And if I kill them, I get a little bit, I get 100 points for each Caragor versus like 80 for an orc if it's a special one. So it's not efficient to kill the wildlife unless, as here, it means that you get more orcs to kill. Okay, so that's finished off the second wave, and as I explained before, the second wave is all full point kills, but if I had stood around for the third wave, that would be 1 point kills. Sword and bow are completely charged, so let's do the next riot. Again, this is completely identical, but at least we're in a slightly different location. So I'll start off using my bow to do all the kills I can. And so I want to use all the focus that I get naturally and then activate the bow to get more focus. So there I activated the bow, although I didn't know if I'd be able to really use it. And fortunately this guy's also vulnerable. He's going down fast. Okay. So the bow is still active, but nobody's vulnerable to range, so I now need to get down there and start attacking them. So he's unhappy that his friends were getting hurt. I think I just immediately activated my sword here to make sure no one got any dialogue. Yeah, the sword is active right now, but it's not draining because my bow was active when I activated the sword, and there's a bug in the animation for that. So here, the warchief I was trying to kill killed my warchief while I was picking off his bodyguards. So what I need to do now is, instead of killing this one, I need to dominate him so that I have once again a dominated warchief. The fact that my sword is still active, even though you can't see the meter draining, it is draining, it just the animation doesn't show that. Again, means he can't show his dialogue. So now he's going to sit down there and wait for me and then talk. He gets all moralistic. Alright, so quick brand and then command him. And he's the last war chief, but I still have 5 captains, so just command them to attack the captains, and I don't know any differences among them, so it doesn't really matter. And this is better than going out and doing captain missions or just searching the map, because when you search the map, often the guys just don't spawn. So I'm just going to get some more points here by killing off some of these guys before fast traveling. Since these guys are branded, they're nominally my allies, which means it's easier to get the execution kills. And they charge the sword just the same. The annoying part is they're all walking away from me, so I have to move toward them. Alright, so I did as much of that as I can, so I'll go back to the tower and do another sequence of killing a wave of orcs. Combat in this game, like the normal way you do combat, is actually pretty good. Like, it's obviously based on Assassin's Creed, but I think it's more interesting and more varied and a little bit more fluid, even than the Assassin's Creed it's based on. So I actually like the just kind of ordinary combat of the game. I think it's unfortunate that they made this mode reward Shadow Strike kills to such an extent that if you want to get a good score, you have to pretty much exclusively use that move. And of course, it's extremely overpowered, since although I've described a few of the challenges of getting the targeting system to work properly, I think that's unintentional in any case. Once you sort of figure out how to make it work, it's really pretty easy combat. Alright, so the sword and bow are once again fully charged, and the riot mission start is just right here, very convenient. So we'll start that again. And even though the enemy this time is not a war chief, it's just an ordinary captain, the mission structure is identical. Except this time there's only one significant enemy to kill, so I don't even need to worry about the order in which these things happen. And here I decided to charge up my hit streak just by doing headshots, which is maybe not the smartest way to do it, but whatever.
You maggot! Everyone listen! We should be fighting this maggot, not each other! Push him back! Did you hear me? Take his head! Never defeat him!
So just as before, I gotta make sure to quickly grab my war chief and command him to attack the next captain. Now, this process of constantly having to start these riot missions is not as efficient as if I were to encounter the captains just during normal play. Annoyingly, the map insists on scrolling to the new mission. So I got a little bit unlucky that there weren't more captains in this stronghold that I'm using to farm the points and charge up my weapons, because it means I have to do as many riots as there are remaining enemies. Alright, so sword and bow are charged. Now I want to do this next mission. It's unfortunately not in a convenient spot. And I decided that since there wasn't any really close spot to fast travel to, that I would just ride a Caragor over there. That way I don't get stranded having to run from the fast travel point to the mission. And also Caragors are nice because if the mission turns out to be on a cliff or something, I don't have to wait for the slow climbing that the guy does on foot. The Caragor just jumps up almost arbitrarily high in one shot. These things are a bit difficult to maneuver in tight spaces, so I'm taking it a little bit easy just to make sure he doesn't do anything stupid. I should have killed him there, but I forgot to. So, exact same mission. Same stupid dialogue. And fortunately he's vulnerable to range, so it should be a... Here, after I got him down, and then I decided to get a little bit fancy and see if I could finish him with an explosion. I don't think I've ever actually killed a captain with an explosion directly, and this one didn't either. And unfortunately, since the explosion obscured my view, I had to activate my bow, so I had enough focus to finish it off. I shouldn't have done that, but oh well. And since I still have my bow active, I decided to get some more kills with it, though I don't know if this is really a good idea. You know, you only get an extra 5 points per kill with a bow as opposed to Shadow Strike kill. So, once again, dominate this guy, command him to attack the next captain. Fortunately, you don't have to have any intel on a captain to be able to command this, so you don't need any more intel than one war chief if everything works perfectly. So, once again, go back to my usual farming spot, kill a wave of orcs. Alright, so sword and bow are completely charged. Now let's head over and do the next riot. Once again, I'm looking for someone I can Shadow Strike to get near it. This guy will have to do. The mission start point is in the next tower over on the right. That Caragor's just a little bit close. It wouldn't quite let me do it until the end. I think while the Caragor is jumping out of his cage, he's in a different animation and can't be targeted. And here we are with a riot once again, same as before.
I'll kill you if I must, yes, no matter what you say.
This mission point is slightly annoying because you have to run forward to get line of sight, and he's invulnerable to range, so I decided just to come down here and start Shadow Striking these guys to build up my hit streak. It's ideal if I don't have to activate my sword, just because if I have to recharge the sword, then I lose time that I would otherwise be earning more points with. Now that my hit streak is charged, I'm going to try to hit this guy, but well, I somehow attacked my own guy instead because of the targeting. And then here, I think if I had Shadow Struck him, I could have done some damage before he said his dialogue. So I should have done that. He doesn't want to be Wraith punched, but he doesn't. He can be jumped over. Instead, there's sort of two moves you can do to stun somebody, and usually one of them works. It's annoying when neither does. Alright, so once again, grab my war chief, command him to attack the next captain. You know, these riot missions for captains avoid the problem of having to chase them down, which is good, since their spawns are unreliable, but it does use a lot of time versus just encountering them when you're out and about. Of course, with the way I've been doing this, where I spend almost all my time in that one stronghold, there's not a lot of opportunity to encounter the captains out in the field. And here I'm just taking advantage of the fact that there are orcs standing around, so I may as well farm them for points before going back. And I didn't use my sword, so I don't need to charge it. So I think given that I did not need to charge either of them, I'm just going to jump straight into this next riot. And unfortunately there's another mission marker right next to it, so I need to make sure I pick the right one. Well, now I'm going to do a wave of these. Okay, so everything's ready to go with this. So I'm just going to ride the Caragor over to the mission start marker for this one. And again, I have to be careful here because one of the mission start markers is the one I want. That's the one that has the red crescents on the sides, and the other's the one I don't. They're right next to each other. There's an enemy up here. So I finish him off with a Caragor, then kill the Caragor, and then this is the proper start marker. So, once again, same deal.
Less blah blah blah. More smash stab kill.
So I charge up my hit streak by blowing up the barrel, then approach him with the bow still active so I can do my initial attack at least before he says any dialogue. And maybe that prevented him from saying dialogue at all? I have to be careful because my own guys are in the way. Oh no, I activated the sword, that's right. The sword is active, that's why he can't talk. Okay. And here I decided that since the sword was active, I would take advantage of it to do a bunch of execution kills, but this is a mistake because you just don't get enough points to make this worthwhile. I should be just doing, either not doing this at all or be doing Shadow Strike kills. So now I need to grab this guy, avoiding all the runes that are on the ground. Command him to attack the last captain. So I used my sword, so once this finishes scrolling, I need to go back to my usual spot and do some more farming and charge up the sword. And so with that last orc, I was able to charge the sword. And with that, I can then fast travel and start the last riot. And once again, there's nobody near my intended target that I can Shadow Strike to. So I just have to run down there.
What's it like to know
And this is completely identical to all the previous riots.
Am I supposed to be intimidated?
One of two very repetitive aspects of this challenge. I didn't mean to jump down there, but oh well. Makes it even easier to get the headshots. Yeah, there's no reason not to just activate the bow here. I want to make sure I get the kill before he says any dialogue, and I don't need my bow for anything else in this whole mission. So that's the last captain. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is let the branded war chief just walk away. My time is 42 and change, and I need to complete this in under 50 minutes. So I'm just taking advantage of these orcs here to get some more points. But basically what I want to do is use all of the remaining time to farm points. You get no bonus for finishing early, but you have to finish in under 50 to complete this challenge. And you're ultimately judged only on your point total. So unfortunately my captain's mission, or war chief's mission, is over there in the middle of nowhere. So it's an inconvenient location. I would prefer it to be near here. So basically the plan now is I'm just going to keep doing waves of these until just before 50 minutes. If you've never played this game, you may get the impression from this challenge that it's mostly about standing in the middle of a pile of orcs, killing them one by pressing X over and over. And while this challenge basically amounts to that, the game has a lot more to it, the main game. So, if you have not played this game and are into games like Assassin's Creed, I think it's a pretty fun game to play, and I'm looking forward to the sequel. I'm hoping that the sequel will have better challenges than this. Alright, and that's the last enemy, and I am just below the 49-minute mark. So I'm going to quickly grab a Caragor, head over to the mission start. Oh, actually, they moved it. They moved the mission start marker, so I decided to fast travel to it. So I have less than a minute, but all I have to do is get to this mission start marker and hope that the captain or war chief actually spawns. It's possible that you'll do this marker and then the war chief won't spawn. And that happened to me on one of my previous runs. And it turns out if that happens, you can press escape and cancel the mission and then start it again. But you have to do that quickly, obviously, because you're almost out of time. Anyway, so the guy did successfully spawn. And I have, I think, about 40 or 30 seconds. Yeah, 30 seconds. And fortunately, he spawned with a crew. That doesn't always happen. But here I've got a bunch of allies who I can go ahead and slaughter very safely before the mission ends. It's a little bit harder to chain Shadow Strike kills on allies than enemies for some reason. That's another aspect of the finicky targeting. But so now I'm down to about 10 seconds left to go. Finish off the last ally and then just press K to kill my branded guys. This guy's head explodes any day now. There you go. And that's the challenge completed. So I get an extra 1,000 points each for finishing under time and without dying, so I end up with 42,221 points and 6 seconds to spare. And if I take a look now at the leaderboard is kind of a mess because the top few entries are clearly not legitimate runs. But, you know, for whatever it's worth, there I am, number 43 on this elite leaderboard of this particular challenge. So, that's the end of this video, and thank you for watching.